That's historical.
Hi, my name's Jason, and today we're going to take a serious look at the topic of terrorism. And while it may seem that terrorism is something new, it's been around for hundreds, if not thousands of years. The idea of using violence to achieve your goals is anything but new. I know that terrorism can be a topic that's shrouded in mystery and darkness, but the best way to shed some light on the topic, and in turn eliminate some of the fear this topic might create, is to look at the facts. In this video, we'll look at the history of using violence as a tool.
Terrorism is the use of extreme public violence for political purposes. The purpose of terrorism is to put fear and panic in civilian populations. The U.S. is no stranger to this, having been the target of both foreign and domestic terrorism. What is terrorism anyway? While there is not an exact definition, terrorism has 4 characteristics. It violates the rules of modern warfare, meaning they don't play the game like everyone else. Its goal is to achieve political or social change. Its targets are symbolic, that is, they are generally not related to the government. They're not actually trying to have a war. And most importantly, it is designed to get attention. Let's look at the history of terrorism in the U.S.
That's some intense stuff. It seems that some people are willing to go to extremes to achieve their goals. In the video, we learned that although terrorism has taken many forms throughout the years, every act has some common characteristics. Unfortunately for terrorists, they rarely get the results they'd hoped for, and somebody gets hurt. I know this is not the most cheery topic, but as I mentioned before, we have to look at the facts surrounding tragedy to make sure that we can form our own opinion. In 1993, there was an attack on the World Trade Center in New York City. The reasons for the 1993 bombings are complex, and there is no single reason the terrorists have attacked the U.S. Watch this video and see what made the towers such an important target.
Overseas attacks on U.S. citizens, military personnel, and embassies by Islamic groups like Hezbollah soon turned to attacks on U.S. soil. U.S. support for Muslims in Afghanistan during their fight against the Soviet Union came back to haunt the United States once the Cold War ended. On February 26, 1993, a car bomb went off in the parking garage below Tower 1 of the World Trade Center in New York City. Terrorists had planned for the bomb to topple Tower 1 into Tower 2 and kill an estimated 250,000 people. However, the towers did not fall. 6 people were killed and over 1,000 were injured in the blast. 6 Muslims were charged with planning and carrying out the bombing. The attack was supposedly paid for by Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, a member of the terrorist group Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda is Arabic for the base. Khalid Sheikh Mohammed is believed to be responsible for many major terrorist plots over the last 20 years. Ramzi Youssef, the mastermind of the plot, was found in an Al-Qaeda safe house in Pakistan and brought back to the U.S., where he is serving a life sentence. Youssef wrote a letter to the New York Times giving his reasons for the attack. Al-Qaeda did not like U.S. aid and diplomatic relations with Israel, and the feeling that the U.S. interfered in Middle Eastern affairs. The investigation showed that the terrorist bomb-making manuals were written by the CIA and had been given to Muslim fighters in Afghanistan during their war against the Soviet Union. Now, the World Trade Center bombing was just the beginning of planned attacks on U.S. soil. During the 1990s, Osama bin Laden emerged as one of the greatest threats to Americans. Bin Laden was born into a wealthy family in Saudi Arabia, with close ties to the Saudi royal family. A devout Sunni Muslim, he believed in the necessity of jihad. Jihad is an Arabic word meaning struggle, and has come to mean holy war. Bin Laden wages jihad because of his belief that he should right the injustices against Muslims by the U.S. and other countries, eliminate Israel, and force the U.S. to withdraw from the Middle East. No one is safe from jihad. Civilians, women, and children can be killed. Bin Laden joined the fight against the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan in 1979. He provided money for the cause from his family's fortune. The CIA supported the Muslim fighters by arming and training them. Once the Soviets were defeated, he supported the Taliban regime that came to power. Then in 1988, he made the connections that resulted in the creation of Al-Qaeda. Shortly after his return to Saudi Arabia in 1990, Iraq invaded Kuwait. He urged the Sultan, the leader of Saudi Arabia, not to use any non-Muslim troops and offered to help defend Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia rejected his offer and called upon the U.S. military because the U.S. and Saudi Arabia have a long-standing friendship. Bin Laden strongly opposed the U.S. presence in Saudi Arabia, home to Islam's most sacred shrines. Al-Qaeda waged a terrorist campaign against Saudi rulers with the goal of kicking out the Saudi royal family and installing an Islamic regime. He was forced to leave the country, and his citizenship was revoked. He moved to Sudan, where he continued to criticize the Saudi king and also planned terrorist attacks. Al-Qaeda was involved in the bombings of hotels in Yemen, attacks that targeted American troops on their way to Somalia. He gave assistance to Somali militias fighting the U.S. He was involved in the assassination attempt on the Egyptian president, and he is linked to the first World Trade Center bombing in 1993. In 1996, he returned to Afghanistan, where Al-Qaeda began to raise money and gain connections. And on August 23, 1996, he issued his first declaration of war against the U.S. He later issued a fatwa that called on all Muslims to kill anyone friendly with the United States, both civilian and military. A fatwa is a call to action by a Muslim religious leader. In August 1998, bin Laden and Al-Qaeda escalated their attacks on the U.S. by bombing U.S. embassies in Kenya and Tanzania, and in October 2000, Al-Qaeda bombed the USS Cole in Yemen. The CIA's support of Muslim fighters in Afghanistan during the Cold War came to play a large role in the organization of Islamic terrorist groups. Osama bin Laden and his group, Al-Qaeda, carried out several attacks against the U.S., including the deadliest attack on U.S. soil.
One way to picture this situation is to imagine a disagreement amongst several animals. Let's say that a fox has a problem with a bear. Then a snake offers to help the fox with his problems with the bear. The fox doesn't want help from the snake. He wants to bring in his buddy, the eagle. The snake doesn't like the eagle at all. Meanwhile, the bear pretty much has a problem with all of the animals. The eagle decides to get involved with the fox's problem, not knowing that the snake is really mad at the eagle. Like really mad. Confused yet? Good. So am I. But let's keep going. The snake is so convinced that the eagle is evil that it's pretty much a belief. Oh, and the snake fights dirty. The eagle regrets getting involved, but wants to stay true to his word with the fox. Our country is the eagle. If you can understand all that, you can understand terrorism. I don't blame you if you're confused. Symbolism is a very important part of many terrorist acts. Let's see if you can identify the symbolism associated with the World Trade Center. To Osama bin Laden and others, the World Trade Center was seen as which of the following? That's not what I got. Think about what kind of statement Osama bin Laden was trying to send by attacking the World Trade Center building. You may not agree with his point of view, but to bin Laden and his followers, the World Trade Center represented something they despised.
Hey, guess what? You get to try it again.
To Osama bin Laden and others, the World Trade Center was seen as which of the following? Good show. A is the correct answer. Bin Laden and his followers felt they had to strike at the symbols of U.S. greed and decadence. They felt that both the businesses in and the physical image of the World Trade Center represented those things.
Grab your notebook. It's time for class notes.
Whoa, I used to think that terrorism happened somewhere else, but I've learned that it can happen anywhere at any time. It all starts with the notion that violence is a way to solve a problem, or at the very least make a statement. In some cases, it's a problem with an institution or a government agency. In other cases, there's some groups that have a problem with the entire country. What makes this really hard to understand, besides all of the different parties involved, is how to change a group of people from believing that another group of people is worth attacking.
That's it for this episode. Thanks for tuning in.